Hey guys, it's Jordan with your weekly refuge video. As always, I hope you're doing well. We are already in week 4 of our series, What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do, examining the life of Joseph. So to start this week, I want you to think of your favorite movie, your favorite show, book, whatever it may be. What is it that draws you to it? And for me, it's typically the characters, the main characters. You really kind of fall in love with them. And a good writer, director, producer, they do a lot of work to make sure you relate to that character. So they'll show you the good of that character, the bad of that character, what they've gone through. And one of the big things they always want to pull out is a character's backstory. It helps you understand where they've been, the motivations they have in the current moment in the story. One of my favorite shows to use flashbacks for backstories was a show called Lost. I don't know if you ever saw it. It started right after a plane crash on a tropical island, and the survivors of the plane crash are trying to survive together. But each episode would focus in on a character's backstory. And it really made the stuff that happened in the present moment on the island more interesting, more compelling, more complicated too. Now, the backstory, sometimes when it would flash back, they seemed completely random. And then you'd get these epiphanies, and it's like, I see where this is going. I see why that plays in. One of the coolest moments of that show, and not everything paid off in the end, but it was still a great show. One of the coolest moments of that show was at the end of the first season, after 24 episodes of backstories and backstories and backstories, they show a scene where everybody's getting on the plane together. At this point, they're all strangers, haven't said a word to each other. They're exchanging nods, helping each other with bags, just kind of doing normal stuff that people do with strangers. But it's so powerful because you're like, oh my goodness, I know that guy's story. I know that woman's story. I know how it plays into what's going to happen on this island. And it really changed my life because I don't look at random strangers the same way anymore. I see everybody has a backstory. Everybody has past hurts, past triumphs that have shaped them and brought them to the present moment in their lives. The same is true for each of you. You all have backstories. You're all living moments right now that will one day be your backstory. And for all of us in the moment, it seems kind of random. It seems weird. We ask the question, what's going on? Why is this happening? What am I even supposed to do in this moment? Now, we're also talking specifically about difficulties, pain, hurt, struggles, the things that, again, one day will be part of our backstories that shape us, and they're rough to go through. We're in this series asking the question, what to do when you don't know what to do, and we're going to ask the question today, what do you do when people make fun of you? A friend dies. Your learning disability makes everything difficult. Your parents divorce, and it's killing you inside. Your self-harm habits getting way out of control, or someone you love is getting really sick. What do you do? In other words, the heavy stuff, the really painful stuff, the real stuff in life. But often, before we even ask the question, what do? We ask the question, why? Why me? Why am I going through this? And just like a movie flashback or a show flashback, it seems random in the moment, pointless or unnecessary. Now, sometimes in life, we have to be fair. It makes sense. I've had some friendships that ended. And in hindsight, looking back, I'm kind of glad they did. Right? I didn't like the way I acted around that person, the influence they had on me, or the person I became. And so looking back, it's probably a good thing that friendship dissolved and ended. And I'm happy for it. Sometimes it works in the moment. Right? Maybe you're playing a sport or in band, and you're not really practicing or pulling your weight, and so somebody calls you out. The section leader calls you out and puts you in extra rehearsals, and it's not fun, it's a lot of work, but you get better. And even in the moment, you're like, it makes sense why I'm in this situation. But if we're being honest, most of the time, it doesn't feel good. It just seems pointless when we go through really, really painful things. Maybe it's not making the team or the musical, or maybe it's something more serious, like drama in your family or with your friends. And we go through this stuff and we ask, why me? Why am I going through this? And unlike the movies, it doesn't get a pretty bow tied around it, at least not right away. And so it can be really difficult to see any point to the pain, to find hope despite the hurt. or to find the determination to keep going in the midst of all these difficulties? One thing that's really helpful, though, is to look at people who have had similar circumstances and ask the question, well, what did they do? What did they do? How did that work out for them? And with that, we're going to go back to looking at the life of Joseph. All right, so we've been going through the life of Joseph. And Joseph, that's found in Genesis in the Old Testament, just means he was a long time before Jesus hits the stage. And here's what we found out. He was sold into slavery by his own brothers. Yikes. He ends up in a foreign country, Egypt, where he has to go work for a high official. And then he gets wrongly accused of doing something he didn't do, and he gets thrown in prison there. And so he goes from a free man to a slave to a prisoner. If anybody could ask, why me? It was Joseph. So Joseph's in jail, contemplating his life. How did I end up here? What did I do wrong? And he makes two new friends. We are in Genesis 40, 1 through 3. Sometime later, so he's been in jail a little while now, the cupbearer and the baker, these are two officials in the king's court, in Pharaoh's court, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard in the same prison where Joseph was confined. Remember, Pharaoh is the king, the boss of all of Egypt, and even just offending him can land you in jail. You didn't do anything illegal. He's just mad at you, so he says, throw him in jail. So he did. Takes the cupbearer and the baker, and he throws them both in jail. And so Joseph has two new friends in jail. The story goes on. After they had been in custody for some time, again, longer period of time, Joseph's just sitting in jail all of this time. Each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held in prison, they both had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. I love this. Just think of the character of Joseph here. You're in prison. I would be a little angry, despondent, frustrated, not a nice guy probably. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. They were upset. So he asked Pharaoh's officials, who were in custody with him in the master's house, why do you guys look so sad today? He's looking out for him. What a guy. They say we both had dreams, but there's no one to interpret them. Then Joseph said to them, do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams. There's a lot happening here, but I just love that even in this moment, good guy Joseph is looking out for people around him and giving glory and honor to God. We could learn a ton just from that. But the story goes on. The men tell Joseph their dreams, and with God's help, Joseph tells them what the dreams mean. He looks at the cupbearer and says, hey, your dream means you're going to be returned to a favorable position. And it happened, and things go really well for the cupbearer. And he looks at the baker and says, hey, buddy, I'm sorry. Your dream means it's not going to go so well for you, and it does not. It's all worth the read, but we'll leave it there. But you would think after Joseph does that, the cupbearer would get out, go back to work for Mr. Pharaoh and say, hey, Pharaoh, there was a guy and he interpreted my dream and it came completely true. His name's Joseph. You have him in prison. He could be a really helpful asset in your court. You probably have dreams, Pharaoh. He might be able to help. The guy just goes back to living like nothing happened and totally forgets Joseph, who's still sitting in jail. Over time, as Joseph is waiting in jail for maybe somebody to think about him, his friend to remember, I'm sure he was tempted to wonder, what is the point of all this in my life? It didn't help my life get better helping those people. Has God completely forgotten about me sitting in this jail? I thought I did what was right and it didn't help me at all. We could all forgive Joseph for thinking those thoughts, and maybe he did. But check this out. 2 years later. Again, he's been in there a long time already. 2 more years go by. And then Pharaoh has 2 dreams that bother him. He searches his staff desperately. Somebody help me interpret these dreams. Pharaoh's all freaked out. And then the cupbearer says, "Oh, Pharaoh, I remember a guy. His name is Joseph. He's sitting in jail." Long story short, Pharaoh gets him out. He tells Pharaoh the interpretation. He helps Pharaoh set up Egypt to prepare for a famine. He gets promoted to second in command under Pharaoh over all of Egypt. It's an amazing, amazing story. By doing that, he's able to save his own family from starvation and death, save his people. It's amazing, right? Now again, 2 full years, 2 more years sitting there, and it didn't fix everything in his life. He was still in a foreign land. He was still working under Pharaoh, and if Pharaoh got mad, it could go really bad for you. But Joseph just seems to make the best of each situation. His character shines through. And that's the kind of thing God can use. And you see how God used Joseph mightily. Didn't make his life perfect. But here's the point tonight I want you to see. Joseph's character, his faithfulness, and his faithfully following God, even through the most difficult, seemingly pointless, random, stupid situations, it uniquely positioned Joseph, unlike anybody else, to be a blessing and a help to those around him. Didn't make all the bad things in his life go away, didn't undo the unique challenges he faced, but the difficult circumstances, they positioned and prepared Joseph to do something great, something only Joseph could have done. The same is exactly true for me and for you. Hard things happen in our lives, and it's important to remember when they do, I'm not saying God calls those hard things. We live in a broken, sinful world where bad things happen. Hurt people, they create cycles of hurt, and it's messed up. And you can look at the situation and say, this is impossible for anything good to come out of it. But we serve a God who is bigger than all of that. And God is in the business of redeeming broken, miserable situations. Check this out. In Romans 8:28, he makes this promise. We know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. If you're a Jesus follower, if you're a Christian, then we know that in every situation in your life, sin, the enemy, the flesh, the devil, it's all having its way and creating chaos. And God is in the midst of it, working out good. We need to trust him. We need to follow him and believe he's in the process of making all things new. It may not make everything better in the moment. It may not even make sense. But God is in the business of taking your hurt, your difficulties, your pain, and redeeming them. Even if something was done in evil or meant for evil, God can use it for good. Not just for us, but for everyone around us. So when you don't know what to do, remember, your problems can actually position you for a unique and amazing purpose. Again, I want to stress, I am not telling you that this is going to make every problem get fixed and all the bad stuff going away. I'm saying if you leave room for God, he can use these situations in ways you could never imagine. And in the end, I am confident we will all look at him and say, thank you. I see you working in that situation. I see how you changed me, changed my heart. How you took the bad and you made something beautiful out of it. The hardest and worst things we experience aren't the end of our story. We don't let the devil or sin get the last word. We let God get the last word. And we can be part of something amazing when we do. Now, a few things to help you get a bigger perspective as we're all, and you will through life. In this moment, in the next season, you're going to go through things that are difficult. One, understand no one has your specific story. Again, the difficulties aren't fun, but they're unique to you. And God is using them to shape you in ways you, again, can't imagine. It's going to give you a different perspective and help you see things differently than anybody else. That said, number two, everybody's hurting. Everybody has a backstory. Everybody's going through problems, facing something. And you can now come in with your unique perspective and the things, if you let God teach you in this moment, man, you can be such a blessing. You can be such a help. It may not make it easier. That'll give you a different perspective on your difficulties. I know God has taken me through seasons that I wish he had it. And then I realized, wow, I can really use that experience to help somebody else, to build your kingdom. And in eternity, I'm going to thank him for it. When you go through family drama, you're going to learn how to help people going through family drama. When you go through a hard breakup, you're going to understand the hurt, the pain somebody's going through when they do that. Maybe sickness or an illness or injury is really affecting you or someone you love. You're going to have a different kind of empathy and understanding for those going through that. And maybe you're having big doubts and questions of your faith. Well, that experience of soul searching and going through that is going to help you be really kind and gentle with someone when they go through the same thing. Right? It's amazing. We follow God to walk us through those seasons, what he can do. You become the kind of person that looks around at people's struggles and you say, oh, you too? Let me tell you, I've been there. Let me help you walk through this. The truth is, one of the best things in those seasons is to have somebody come alongside you and say, I'm going to walk with you through this season. Again, life group plug. That's why you have your leaders. You have no idea the backstories, the experiences, good and bad, that are sitting with you, with your life group leaders. Go to them, talk to them. They understand where you're at. They've been through it, similar situations, and they can help you, and they love you, and they want to. All right, so what Joseph went through, again, the pain, the hurt, it felt pointless in the moment. But we see the full picture now looking at his life. We see the way God was working in those situations. That he used Joseph's problems and positioned him uniquely for something amazing. God took his impossibly bad situation and created unimaginable good, not just for Joseph, but for everybody around. Complete strangers were blessed because of Joseph's story. And this is what I know to be true. Joseph looked at God in the end and said, thank you. I didn't get it. I hated it. It hurt. But I followed you. I trusted you, and you did not let me down. What if God is using your painful situation right now to position you uniquely for something amazing? Something that's going to be a blessing to you, to everyone around you, to people you'll never meet. And it's going to build his kingdom, and that in eternity, we're going to thank him for it all. Again, he didn't cause it, but he's using it now in your life. Trust him, walk with him, go to him with it. So with that, I'm going to leave you, go to group, talk to your leaders about this. We all have stuff we're going through right now, stuff we've been through. There's plenty to talk about. And please, 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 in the end, trust him because he won't let you down. All right, guys, I love you. I miss you. I'll talk to you soon. Remember, church starts this Sunday, 10 o'clock. We have live services. We're working on the youth piece. That'll probably come in August. I'm really excited, but yeah, hope to see you then. All right, bye.